on the line with us, on the wire with us, on the magic machine with us, Mike Papantonio, attorney, host of Ring of Fire Radio, ringofireradio.com. How you doing, Pap?
I'm doing fine, Tom. You know, I just great holiday. How about yours?
We had a really nice time. We just we were orphans this year. We weren't able to get out to visit my brothers in Michigan or our kids in Portland, so we just visited some of the other orphans who live in our marina and just visited a couple of people's boats and shared meals with them and had a nice time. It was a nice time. So, Ring of Fire Radio, you are pretty fit. Today, we've got this strike going on all across the United States with the McDonald's and low-wage workers. Right. And now we find that it's not just the low-wage workers.
Yeah, I mean, lately...
it's not just the fast food industry, excuse me.
Yeah, everybo's been paying attention to the fast food industry because, I mean, the numbers are staggering. 52% of the families that were the main money earner is working at a fast food restaurant. Of those 52%, they're on some type of public assistance. It comes to $7 billion a year that taxpayers are having to pick up the tab for. But, you know, lately we're seeing that there's a lot more to this story. It's not just the fast food industry. 1/3, this is an amazing number, but 1/3 of all the people who work as bank tellers in the United States rely on public assistance. Now, that's costing taxpayers, just that little part of the economy, $900 million a year. $100 million is spent on food stamps. This is for bank tellers, Tom. Right. $500 million spent for Medicaid. You know, we have to take care of their families for children in need, and so the point is this: this is all taking place when the CEOs of actually not even the CEOs, chief executives in the lower rungs of the management of the food industry are making $500,000 a year, while a bank teller is making somewhere around $24,000. So the high cost to taxpayers of this is the cost is we're paying for another industry's low wage, and it's simply externalizing this industry, the banking industry, just like the fast food industry, is externalizing their risks, their overhead, their bad conduct to taxpayers. Yeah. So they socialize all the bad and internalize all the good.
Yeah. I think a lot of this came out of, and I don't want to blame this all on Bill Clinton, because obviously, this is Reaganomics on steroids. Reaganomics has gutted the middle class. But when Clinton and Gingrich got together and said, let's, and I think from Clinton's point of view, probably with the best of intentions, let's stop multi-generational welfare. Let's require after at least 4 years that people can no longer get welfare unless they get a job. But we know that those jobs are going to be tough and they're going to be low paying, and so we'll continue to provide benefits to people if they have a job. Then what happened was American business said, "Ho, here's a brand new business model for us. The government will pay people benefits if they're working for us, but only if our pay is below a certain amount. So let's start paying below that amount."
Right.
Does this make sense to you?
Well, I mean, it's a great business plan, Tom. If you're running a corporation, it's the equivalent. It's easier to understand this way. If a corporation that pollutes our rivers or our air or with toxins, they pollute our public commons with this toxic mess. Unless taxpayers spend money to clean that up, it never gets cleaned up. And this is the equivalent here. In other words, the corporation makes their profit by externalizing or moving these things that they should be doing to taxpayers. Right. So it's a disaster for taxpayers. It's wonderful for corporate America. But your point about Bill Clinton, listen, if you go back and take a look at when and why Bill Clinton made these big concessions to Wall Street. That's what these concessions were. It wasn't Newt Gingrich who made him do this. It was Wall Street. And I think it's very difficult to put a positive spin on the Clinton legacy, because all what he did is he continued the lie, Tom. He knew it was a lie. He understood that the average single mom trying to raise 4 children out there was not exactly living the life of Riley. He also understood that yes, there are people that abuse the system, but do they abuse the system to where it costs the taxpayers as much money as Wall Street when Wall Street abuses the system? Right. We know abuse is going to take place. So the question then becomes, do we allow the abuse to take place at the bottom because it's far less? It's far less money, it's far less incident, but the money that you give to people at the bottom is going to move up. The money that you give to the Wall Street abuser will rarely move down. So Bill Clinton knew all this. He's not a dummy, but this is all for Wall Street. It was a Wall Street show. The same thing we can expect from Hillary as she starts her presidential campaign.
Yeah. And this has been going on for, a long, long time. Occasionally somebody speaks out. Did you hear Teddy Kennedy? I've got about a 20-second clip. May I play it for you?
Of course.
This is 2000. I'm sorry? Oh, Shane says he needs 10 seconds to cue it up. This is from 2007, and this is after the Bush administration had given over $300 billion in tax cuts to the biggest corporations. They had given over $30 billion in tax cuts to, quote, small businesses, which include things like Koch Industries. They had given billions and billions of dollars to the Mitt Romneys of the world. And Teddy Kennedy is asking the question, why not raise the minimum wage? When does the greed stop? Here it is.
$240 billion in tax breaks for corporations, $36 billion in tax breaks for small businesses, increase in productivity, 42% over the last 10 years. But do you think there's any increase in the minimum wage? No. What is the price? We ask the other side. What is the price that you want from these working men and women? What cost? How much more do we have to give to the private sector and the business? How many billion dollars more are you asking? Are you requiring? When does the greed stop?
And then, of course, in the next year, in that crash, fully $7 trillion was extracted from the American middle class in that bubble.
Tom, it's interesting to note that what Ted Kennedy was talking about long before anybody was paying attention, he said there's many parts to what was happening to the economy then.
Yeah.
He said, we've talked about it before, he said, this is really the beginning of what we call the scarcity enterprise. That is where jobs are scarce, manufacturers are sending the jobs overseas. You have 20 people fighting for the same jobs in the United States. So that's the first thing that harms the economy and harms the job market. Then the second part of it was the overvaluation of a dollar. I mean, these were the parts that he and some other people were analyzing. The overvaluation of the dollar, as you know, I think you've talked about in your book, affects GDP, right? I mean, it has a direct effect on the trade deficit, and it causes job loss because of that trade deficit. And then the third part is you have this reducing the GDP, reduces job growth. But it all begins from that first thing, and that is to create job scarcity to where you can pay somebody $7 an hour, and they're willing to take the money because there's 20 people behind them that will take the money if they don't.
Right, and that nets out to either changing our trade policies or raising our minimum wage or going back to unionization, or all three.
Yes. I think all three are required, and unfortunately, I don't know about you, but I'm not seeing anything. I'm seeing just the opposite, with discussions still on the table about TPP, and so you just have to wonder, when are we going to change policy?
And these third-way Democrats, I don't know if you saw this thing, Marcos Melitsis just put this up over at the Daily Codes about the Democrats, calling out the Democrats by name. I will be doing it in the next segment.
Good.
Who are, and the third-way board of directors is almost entirely investment bankers, almost entirely. Mike Papantonio, ringofireradio.com, Ring of Fire Radio on the weekends. Thank you, Pap.
Thank you, John.